Here's how you can save hundreds of dollars by using an external SSD with your new Apple device. If you're planning to get a new Mac but don't want to spend a fortune on storage, an external SSD is a fantastic and cost-effective alternative. In this video, I'll be putting the ZikeDrive NVMe SSD enclosure model Z666 to the test. This is a sleek and compact and remarkably fast SSD enclosure which promises to deliver blazing fast speeds. The ZikeDrive Z666 claims to be the fastest consumer external SSD solution available on paper, and I'll be testing that later in this video to see if that holds true or not. This enclosure is compatible with the M.2 NVMe SSD and works with various sizes including 2280, 2260, 2242, and then 2230. These are all different sizes of SSDs that are on for sale. This enclosure can support up to 16 terabytes of storage. Do note that you'll need to purchase the SSD separately. In this video, I tested this enclosure with the T500 by Crucial, which is a 1 terabyte SSD, and I also used my M1 Pro, MacBook Pro, and the base MacMini to do all my testing. Now let's get into the specs. The Z666 claims to have impressive read and write speeds. It has maximum write speeds of 3199 megabytes per second write, and then 3811 megabytes per second read speeds. The 1 terabyte Crucial T500 that I'm using for this test offers a 7400 megabytes per second read speeds and then 7000 megabytes per second write speeds. However, when combined with the ZikeDrive Z666 enclosure, this setup will not reach those speeds due to the limitation by the ZikeDrive's enclosure. Now, this SSD enclosure comes with two USB cables, one long and one short. The short cable is built in within the drive, which is convenient for, easy storage, and then you can just connect it and then plug it in whenever needed, and once you're done, you just unplug and then store it within the enclosure. This drive also comes with a clear protective plastic shell, which adds extra layer of durability, keeps heat away from your hands, because this drive does get quite hot. This makes me wonder why they're using plastic, because plastic works more like an insulator rather than a heat dissipator. I believe using this plastic enclosure will heat up the drive a lot more and reduce the cooling capability. Overall, this enclosure feels premium and it's made from high quality aluminum and appears to be quite durable. As for pricing, at the time of this recording, this ZikeDrive enclosure is on sale for $109. And if you use the link below from the description, you get additional 20% off, which will end up costing around $87. The external Crucial T500 will cost you additional $90. So altogether, your 1 terabyte setup will cost you around $180. Now, if you take that up to 2 terabytes, it's going to cost you around $214. To put that into perspective, a 2 terabyte Mac Mini will cost you additional $800 when you spec it that way. So getting this will save you around $580. So that's huge cost savings in my opinion. Do note that the prices will fluctuate throughout the year, so keep an eye on the sale and then get it when it's on sale. By the way, all the products mentioned are linked in the description below, so do check that out. And just to clarify, I'm not sponsored by Zike. The Zike team sent me this drive to do my own independent review of their product, and I have complete freedom to share my honest thoughts and opinion in this video. Now let's talk about the setup. Setting up the ZikeDrive enclosure is a simple and tool-free process. You start by opening up the metal cover of the enclosure, which reveals the interior, and that's where you install your NVMe SSD. All you gotta do is align the NVMe SSD with the slot, ensuring that it matches the connector layout, and then gently insert it until it's fully seated. You can secure the SSD by turning the rubber plug into lock position. Next, peel off the protective film from the thermal pad that is attached to the metal cover to ensure proper heat dissipation. Lastly, close the metal cover and then finally connect your USB cable, and that's it. You are all done setting up the drive. Now, once you pop this into your Mac, you're gonna get an error message saying that this drive is not readable by your computer. To fix this, all you gotta do is hit initialize, and that will bring up the disk utility program. From there, look for your drive that you just plugged in. In my case, it's on the bottom left-hand corner. Next, I'm gonna hit erase to erase this disk and reformat it properly. As for the format, I wanna leave it as APFS or Apple File System because that works the fastest and more efficient with Apple devices. Next, you want to give it a name. So in my case, I called it Zike. So I just did that and then finally hit erase. The drive's gonna do its process and then get formatted and then mount onto your desktop. And that's pretty much it. You're all set and ready to use it, and then you can start moving your files over to the drive. Now let's talk about benchmarking. As I mentioned earlier, the Zike claims to deliver write speeds of 3199 megabytes per second write and then 3811 megabytes per second read speeds. However, when I did my own testing using the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test app, I got 3137 megabytes write and then 2973 megabytes per second read speed. Now, initially I used my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is an M1 MacBook Pro, so I thought maybe the speed reduction was due to the older M1 Pro chip. I next tested this with my M4 MacMini and I got very similar results. So why did this happen? Well, there are a few possible reasons, and in my opinion, the Zike enclosure may not be fully utilizing the Mac's USB-C or Thunderbolt 4 bandwidth. Let me know what you think could be the reason that this drive didn't get the fully advertised speeds in the comments below. Now, tests are great, but I wanted to see how the Zike performs in a real-world scenario. To find out, I used the project from my last video, which was about finding the best external SSD for a Mac Mini. The project consisted of 126 gigs of video, audio, and photos. I started by transferring the files to the ZikeDrive, which took around 43 seconds to transfer. If you do the math, this translates to about 2930 megabytes per second of write speeds. Then I moved the files back from the ZikeDrive onto my internal Mac SSD on the MacBook Pro, which took additional 48 seconds. When you do the math, this translates to about 2625 megabytes per second. So the write speeds were close to what I got through the benchmarking tool, but the read speeds were somewhat slower. But overall, it's definitely a lot faster than anything I tested before. To put this into perspective, this drive was around 18 to 19% slower than the advertised speeds. Now let's talk about thermal throttling, because it's a big issue when it comes to these high-performing SSDs. The thermal throttling is the built-in safety mechanism in SSDs designed to prevent overheating and then prevent reduction of the life of the drive. So to test that, what I did was I transferred 158 gigabytes of files onto the drive. I then immediately ran the speed test and I noticed a sharp drop in performance. The write speeds fell down to 1331 megabytes per second write, and then the read speeds dropped to 1816 megabytes per second read. Before the file transfer, the drive's idle temperature was around 91 degrees Fahrenheit or 32.8 degrees Celsius. However, after a heavy workload, the temperature spiked to 100.2 degrees Fahrenheit or 37.9 degrees Celsius. And that's where I think it triggered the thermal throttling mechanism so that it doesn't exceed those temperatures. Overall, the thermal throttling caused the enclosure and the SSD to perform roughly 50% slower than the original advertised speeds. This is something to keep in mind if you're planning to use the drive for extended periods of time for doing demanding tasks. The last test I did was to install and run macOS on my M4 Mac Mini using the ZikeDrive's external SSD enclosure. I installed the OS onto the external drive and then set everything up. Everything ran flawlessly. When doing the speed test, the drive was actually faster than the internal Mac Mini's own SSD. This test to me demonstrates that the Zike's external SSD enclosure combined with a high-performance SSD like the crucial T500 is just not only a great storage expansion solution, but it's a great alternative to run an operating system on. But do note that using external drives with macOS has its own set of limitations, which I'll cover in a future video. So in conclusion, I would say that the Z666 paired with the crucial T500 is an excellent option for most users. If you're looking for a cost-effective, high-performance external storage solution, this is an ideal for doing general tasks like moving files over or storing additional media. I'm personally going to use this drive for keeping and storing my projects for my YouTube channel. If you frequently handle large workloads or need absolute peak performance, then getting more storage from Apple might be the better option for you. Well guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and then I'll see you in my next video.